So thank you.
You bet. All right, Chris. Chris
All right.
Davison. Yeah, he's the Veteran Recruitment Program Manager, as you can see, with BAE Systems Incorporated. His email's down there if you want to reach out to him. He's a wonderful uh, recruiter and gentleman for BAE. So he's going to give you some great tips on resume writing and interviewing. So hit it, Chris.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Real quick, 10 seconds about me. A Navy veteran. I've been with BAE Systems almost 27 years. I've been in talent acquisition the whole time, and I did human resources when I was active duty. So I bring a lot of experience to the table just as a defense contractor. So everything that I'm going to tell you today is not all my ideas. Certainly, it's some industry best practices, but I want to share with you kind of the nuts and bolts of what we in talent acquisition really look for. So I'm going to get started. One of the, and I'm not going to bore you, we do have a kind of a smaller group, but this is a little bit about BAE Systems. We're aerospace and defense company. We've got 41,000 people. We're in 37 states. We have 8 home markets, as you can see there. We do about $13.5 billion a year, but the majority of our work revolves around systems. So that can be surface, air, subsurface, security, intelligence, and really if it floats, flies, or dives, there's a good chance that it has BAE Systems components or work or engineering on it. So let's move on. These are some of the top areas, not all areas that we hire for in BAE Systems, but these are probably the most reoccurring, high demand, short supply positions that we go after often. We hire right at 1,200 veterans a year, works out to be on average 5 a day. And we have around 6,700 veterans in our workforce. So we're proud of that. Let me move right in. I'll jump right into resumes. These are just, over the years, I've kind of just made this list. And so this is the best I could do on the tips. And I'll run through most of these. If you have a clearance in your education, even if your education, you're working on it, put it at the top. And the reason for that is in defense contracting world, our job is to classify you. What is your education and your total years of experience? That kind of puts you into a bucket that has a salary range, et cetera, et cetera. So really, that's the most important thing you can do is throw that up the top. Try to avoid very generic or vague language or statements. You want to make sure, this isn't a history paper you're writing for college. I mean, you want to make it succinct, to the point. Grammatically, it needs to be right, but, every word on there needs to have meaning. So remember that. And write your resume specifically for the position that you're applying. I'll put a couple asterisks after that. To me, this is for all industries, but that is so simplistic, but that is the most important tip that anybody could give you for your resume. Write it to the position. Now, granted, you're going to probably have a very generalized resume that you kind of keep on your phone or, easily or readily available. That kind of covers, your whole experience and background, education, et cetera. But when it comes down time to apply to a job, you need to have that job printed out or on another screen. And when you're building your resume, you want to make sure that you're answering questions on your resume that are asked by the job posting. Remember that your technical skills should come before your work history. And what I like to recommend is what I call a keyword group. And so let's say if you're going after, a programming position or software development or whatever, and there's like 20 different languages, and you notice on the job description, it mentions, 10 of these languages. And so somewhere on your resume, usually right under your address at the very top, I basically call it a technical skills summary or technical summary. You can group all those words in there. And so many times companies, even ours, they're looking at resumes. We have a system that scans the resume looking for keywords. And so through the screening process, if you have that keyword group somewhere on your resume that speaks to the job posting, then, and it needs to make sense, obviously, But I recommend that. One page is best. Obviously, if you have a lengthy career, 10 plus years, 20 years, it's hard to do that, but you can do it. One page is the best, and it also helps you focus, like really bring in everything you've done over the years and your experience, and bring it down, compress it so it's more meaningful in those bullets, or whatever format you may use, chronological or a functional. Chronological just kind of covers the time, and continuity in your career, whereas a functional kind of lists everything you're good at all in one big copy, and then at the bottom kind of shows your work history, like company, dates, etc. Go ahead, Melissa. You're on mute.
Where would you put like volunteer work? Like I was an
volunteer,
ombudsman for a while and whatnot, so.
Sure. That would be kind of at the bottom of your resume. However, even though you volunteered, I know what an ombudsman is. That's a lot of work. And so what I would tell you is I would list that as a position. You've done so much
Okay.
and you've shown so much responsibility, even if it's an overlapping, like you were an ombudsman for 7 years and you had 2 jobs in between or whatever, still
Right.
listed a from and to date ombudsman, who your stakeholders were, what you did, if you managed budgets, whatever. That in of itself, it kind of reduces its effect if you call it just a volunteer position. Even though that's what it was, that is
Yeah.
a key position. Yeah, but
Okay.
and you'll see, like the last bullet I'm showing here, leave your hobbies and your interests off, unless it pertains to the job. I would consider an ombudsman definitely not a hobby or interest. I mean, it could be, but that is a volunteer position. So,
Yeah, and
answer
I
your
worked with a
question.
lot of. Yeah. Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah, yeah. Also, since companies use these systems that look at your resume and kind of parse it out, um, try to avoid putting boxes, any lines or boxes on your resume, even pictures, no illustrations, nothing like that. And even like lines that separate sections on your resume, try to leave those out. And the reason for that, not because it doesn't look good to the reviewer, but when that computer system, that ocular or optical ocular system glances over it, a lot of times those boxes or tables and things like that will skew the data in it. And so when it gets spit out on the other end and the recruiter gets to look at it, that whole section may be just blank, or it'll have a lot of various characters in it that make no sense. So I always like to put that in there. In regard to fonts, I put some examples here, and you can get a copy of these slides from David afterwards if you'd like. But I call out some specific fonts that are a little easier on the eye. They're a little softer. And when remember that whoever's reviewing this sometimes is looking at thousands of these a week. So anytime you can get the edge, I really like Garamond. It's very gentle. I mean, there's been studies done on this too, but those are really the most recommended. And then font size, try to stick, 10 to 12. What you're seeing here is 14 on this page, but on a resume, 10 is about as low as you want to go. You can do sub bullets and things like that in 10, and maybe your headers and things like that in 12, and just work 10, 11, 12. That gets you more space on the page to use as well. Treat your resume like it's a block of real estate in Manhattan. I mean, I really mean that. Every word, every character, it needs to have meaning. It needs to have substance. Because as you start looking at one page, you're going to soon find out that you're going to try to compress a lot of things. And so kind of back to that number 2 bullet, avoid generic and overly vague statements. You really want to get down to a succinct, comprehensive, description of you, description of your job. Okay, I'm going to move on. Does any Janella or Melissa, go ahead, David.
Yeah, I did have a question. You mentioned earlier about functional resumes formats. You're okay with functional resume formats?
Yeah, I mean, to me, they're very general, and especially somebody that's worked in various skill set related positions, maybe different industries. Maybe they were in academia, then they were with retail, whatever. A lot of times functional is better because you get skills out of every industry. Let's say it's supply or inventory management and all of these different industries. Well, that all kind of looks the same nomenclature, the vernacular is similar, so you can drop all that in as a functional. And then where you list your work experience, you're at Target for 3 years, you're at SAS for 4 years, you're at something independent school district for 5 years. That is easier for the reader versus a chronological that shows you were 2 years at Target, then you were a school teacher for 4 years, then you were a software developer at SAS. A lot of times a recruiter or somebody go, what did this person do? And so functional kind of brings it skill based. So hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah,
move to the next slide. Let me go ahead and are you guys still be able to see my screen?
Nope.
Dave, you're going to need to reset me again.
I just did.
Okay.
I just did.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why that's doing that. I hope was my screen up when I was talking to you?
No, it was. No,
There
it
it
was.
is.
It
Oh,
was.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yep, you're good.
Okay. Okay. So looks like Sean just joined us. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you.
I just covered resume tips. It looks like we got a little over 30 minutes. These were some of the areas that we really go after for veterans. We do hire out of the 40,000 MOCs in the military, we hire about 80% of them. And so this is what we hire the most of. So I wanted to point that out. As you see, logistics and supply is huge in our company. And then, we do ship repair, we do weapon systems development, we hire tons of intelligence analysts, we do geospatial mapping and software for various organizations in the government, along with full motion video analysis. Sean, if you want to screen shoot this is just my resume tips. If you want to grab that, because I'm going to move to the next slide.
I'm happy to send it to you as well, Sean. So just let me know. You see my email down here. Just let me know. I'll send it to you. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So here I'm going to get into interview tips. And these are really high level. Some of them are pretty detailed, but these are just high level. Like this is kind of the standard. Research the company. We could do a whole new segment on just like me giving you tutelage on, career counseling and pathing and things like that. But if you've applied to this job, you've been talking to the recruiter, you want to research the company. I mean, go to Wikipedia, go to their website, go to Indeed.com. You can go to Glassdoor.com. Understand, where this position kind of fits in the company, and you may get some hints on that based on the job description, what sector it's with or business area, things like that, and the location. And then once you know where the location's at, go out and Google it. John Deere or BAE Systems in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. What do they do there? Who are their customers? Really, you want to arm yourself with as much information when you go into the interview. One, it's very impressive to the interviewer, either he or she or a panel. That if you're knowledgeable about the position, they know you've done your homework. And it also helps you formulate questions, which I'll cover that here in a second. But that's really important. Research the position as well. Look at that job description, see where it fits. Look in your LinkedIn network. If you have a LinkedIn network, if you have somebody that works for this company, ask them questions. Hey, I'm interviewing for this job in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I don't know if you know anything about it. Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. You'll get more information like that. So do your research. Also, in regard to dress code, a lot of people ask this. A lot of interviews are done virtually now, but there are still in-person interviews being done, and even virtual. At least your top. Dress up. Ask your recruiter what's the dress code. The recruiter will give you the best advice, and don't be a slob. Dress up. Dress up like you're going to not a black tie event, but your Sunday best, I'll just say it. If you got it, put a jacket on for the guys, maybe a tie, nice blouse for the ladies. That there's some things that say wear bold colors and things like that. I'm not really a fan of that. We're not fashion police, so we're really not scrutinizing what you wear unless you're in shorts or jeans with holes all in them or things like that. That says a lot about how serious you're taking the interview. Arrive early or dial in early for your interview. I can't say that enough. Be there, give yourself a half-hour buffer in case you run into traffic, or if you get there, and that gives you time to maybe talk to the front desk receptionist. He or she, small chatter goes a long way. When you walk out the door after the interview, that front desk assistant or receptionist, more times than not, the hiring managers will come to them and go, "What'd you think about this person?" So be nice, smile, be warm. When you're at your interview, a lot of people get nervous about the interview, but really it's a discussion. You're learning about the company, they're learning about you. They need you just as much as you need them in most cases. So it's an open dialogue.
Chris, Chris, I'm sorry, you lost your video. I just reset you.
I don't know why it's doing that. Can you guys see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's linked to when new people enter the room. I think it's linked to that.
Okay. So if that happens again, Dave, as soon as somebody bumps in, reset me and okay. So at the interview, the main purpose is to showcase your strengths and your areas for improvement. So you want to be open to, you're not coming to the company to teach them everything about you, right? You're going to learn from the company as well. However, I will say that Steve Jobs did say that he hires or when he was alive, the late Steve Jobs said Apple, they hire people so those people can tell them what to do, not so that Apple can tell them what to do. There's a lot to be said in that. So showcase what you're good at. You want to speak to your resume and just be open to field any questions. The key is to describe your accomplishments, not just put down what you did, but were you good at it and what you were proud of. That's very important. One, they can tell by the way you're talking. When they're looking at you and you're talking about your accomplishments, they can see the pride that you have. They can see the commitment you have. If there's any questions about teamwork ability or collaboration, a lot of those questions are answered just on how you deliver your responses, your competence in your responses, and the pride that you have in the work you did. And that, especially if we're in the military, I mean, that is adaptability, teamwork. So many of those things are important in any position that you're going to be interviewing for. And give samples of your previous projects. So you can't put everything on your resume, but if you talk about a project that you did, and they ask you to describe it, feel free to go, "Oh, and by the way, we did this 6 months after for another department, blah, 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 blah." They'll understand. Obviously, you're trying to pack everything on your resume, but it gives you segues to talk about maybe a different environment you were in when you did the same type of project. It shows your ability to adapt. And so, it's all about you. Get on your soapbox and talk about yourself. Talk about what you did, what you're most proud of, and be willing to talk about your weaknesses. Everybody has a weakness, and they may ask you, describe what your weakness is. You never want to say, "Well, I don't have any weaknesses." We all have weaknesses. Show some humility, and just come right out. And a lot of times, especially for you guys who are in school right now, one of your weaknesses could be like, I need to learn more about what I'm doing, my specialty. And I feel like that a weakness is, that I don't do that enough, and I'm excited about that. So I always like to recommend presenting a 30 and 60-day plan. So a lot of times the interviewer might say, "So, Melissa, if we were to bring you aboard, what do you see yourself doing in the first 3 to 6 months?" And stop and really think about that. The first 30 days, you want to learn about the company. I like to call it corporate immersion. You're thinking about onboarding. You're getting in with the company. You're getting to learn about the area of focus that you're working in. And then at 60 days, you're starting to kind of bring down your level of focus to specific tasks or things like that. Just be open-minded, all the while thinking about, I want to learn more about the position, the company, and where my spoke fits in the wheel. And hopefully, if you've done your research on the company, you'll have a good idea of really why the position you're interviewing for is critical. They'll tell you that, but you may already know that coming in. And it's very impressive if you know that and you can speak to how you would contribute to the mission that may be in front of you. And, ask unique questions. Those are, during your research of the company, you might have seen something about a product or a patent or something they did. Try to keep out the negatives like bankruptcy and things like that. But, if there's something that the company was really proud of that might have driven their stock up or, brought down a barrier into a new market or something like that, we are blown away when candidates, interviewees ask those types of questions. And many times I've seen it, the panels learn from the candidate, like, we did that? When was that? What? And they're leaning over to each other. And it really, we look at that candidate as somebody who's really done their homework. Like they came in prepared. They know a lot more about this company than some of our employees. So keep that in mind. I always like to recommend following up with a thank you note, at minimum an email. A handwritten note is, they're a differentiator. They really mean, 20 words. Hey, really appreciate the interview. Thanks for your time. Look forward to hearing from you. The end. Don't beg, don't grovel. It's obvious. One note's fine. You got your recruiter's phone number, so he or she, you can follow up with them. But I will tell you this, is that when you're interviewed, you may be interviewed with 10 other people spanning 2 or 3 weeks. You want to ask your recruiter about that. What is the timeline of this? So you want to interview me on Tuesday. When would a decision be made? Or how many interviewees are there? So you get an expectation of when you're going to hear back, because it's highly competitive right now. We're at a 4.1 unemployment rate, and veterans are even lower than that. So I would say if you get an interview and you do the interview, you need an answer within a week. I mean, and I know we provide, as soon as our last interview is done, within 24 hours, we're calling the number one candidate or candidates. So, okay, I'm going to move to the next slide. Is there any questions before I move on? Excuse me. Okay, so the next slide I put together was in regard to, that was the do's, these are the do nots. And, this is just kind of regurgitation of the first slide and contrary, but, don't go into the interview not knowing the position you're interviewing for, like back to that research again. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but that is very important. Also, practice your elevator speech, okay? Because one of the first questions that you're going to be called upon to answer at an interview is, hi, Melissa, or Sean, or Janella, tell us a little bit about yourself. And that is like them handing you a big white canvas and 100 paintbrushes, because now's your chance. They've seen your resume or you wouldn't be at the interview. Here's your chance to talk about you. Keep it, a couple minutes, and you'll, read the body language, read the room, but a couple minutes, your elevator speech, practice it. If you don't have one, make one. If you don't know what one is, Google it. Very important. And don't rush answering questions. Pause, kind of prepare in your mind. Every question they're going to ask you more than likely has to do with two things: your resume or scenarios that you might be faced with in this new potential company. And many times those are going to relate to something you've already experienced, either in the military or at another job prior to your service or even after. So stop, pause, think about it for a second, move on. Don't discuss non-job related topics. Now, that's during the interview. So for example, hey, John, tell us a bit about, where you've had some difficulty in managing a situation. And then John's like, well, I've got 4 kids at home, and they come home and they're, they want, all of them want something different for dinner. That's not what they were asking. They want to know about something that happened at a job or your job or something like that. Now, the interview concludes. Everybody's got a warm fuzzy. It's high fives and handshakes all around. And then they just sit back in their chair, and now we're just talking. They're not supposed to ask you if you're married. They're not supposed to ask you if you have children. Anything personal like that, they're not allowed to ask you. However, if you volunteer it, like, oh, I can't wait to get home and tell my husband about this great interview, or my kids were so excited that I was coming to interview with an airplane company, and then you don't know where the conversation will go. So Don't discuss non-job related unless, you're asked or it kind of leads into that. Don't chew gum. I know that sounds so simple, but a lot of times we're doing interviews at home virtually and we have gum in our mouth and don't even realize it, and then the interview starts and we're smacking our gum away. Throw it away. Maybe a glass of water or something like that. If you're doing an in-person interview, they're going to have water for you probably. Don't wear strong perfume, cologne, or lotions. A lot of times folks are sensitive to it or possibly allergic. So just something to keep in mind. Don't speak negatively about your current employer or former employer. If you've been laid off or you quit, or even the military, once you got out, let's think about all the good things. There's nobody I don't think I've met a few people in my lifetime that have regretted being in the military. Even if you had a bad experience, there was good in there somewhere, and especially if they're asking you about your military service, you want to play that up. You want to talk about how it helped, really become more technically skilled, or, even your soft skills, whatever it may be. And, they may ask you about your past job, your past role. Why did you leave? Things like that. And so be prepared for that and think about how you answer that. I'll give you, let's say you had just a mean manager, mean boss, and you just had to get out. And if they ask you, why did you leave your last position? Don't say, well, my manager was a jerk and he or she, blah, blah, blah. You can simply say something like, I wanted new opportunities. There was no growth. So here I am interviewing with you. The end. They don't need to know all the drama, leave the baggage at the front door type thing. So make sure that you do not forget to bring several copies of your resume. Keep them in a folder. I like to tell people, bring in a binder. You don't have to bring in a roll-in suitcase or something to an interview. Just a binder. Leave all that in the car. If you want to bring a laptop bag, great. Awards, those citations, you can have those, just a copy of those in your bag as well. If you do list your awards on your resume, there's a good chance, I've seen it happen, it happens often, is that somebody, the interviewer or one of the interviewers on the panel might ask you, hey, why'd you get this award? And certainly you can simplify the response, but you can also, while you're talking, reach down into your bag, pull out the citation. They're usually very impressive. Very good wordsmithing, I would say, in most military award citations. But you can set it in front of you and talk about it, especially if it's something that your unit or an individual award. Those are important. You guys earn those. And a lot of times employers are quite impressed when you can kind of relive that moment, why you got the award, and kind of talk through it, And that's just another piece of your resume that you didn't put on your resume. You got their award, but they don't know what it is. It just says, Army Commendation Medal. But then you start talking about why you got it. Again, they see that pride in your eyes. You're proud of talking about it, and you're also doing something different, which is a whole different view from your view, and then the interviewers. Don't forget to make eye contact. This is very important. Obviously, there's be times when you're searching your vocabulary, things like that. Make eye contact, especially with the person that asked the question. If you're in a panel interview and one person, if Jennifer asked the question, I'm responding to Jennifer. Unless Jennifer says, hey, Chris, can you tell the group here why you did X, Y, Z? But more than likely, she might say, can you tell me? Now I'm talking to Jennifer. Even if there's 3 other people in the room, I might do a simple glance, but I'm looking at her. So that's important. If that's uncomfortable for you, practice in the mirror, practice with a friend, practice with a family member. It is a skill, but it's just exhibiting your genuineness. If you're truly, genuine and sincere on what you've done and what's on your resume, you're going to make eye contact just because it's what you do when you're communicating. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. So we got about 15 minutes. This shouldn't be an issue. So that was all I had on interview tips. Is there any questions before I move into the next slide? And feel free to unmute and just jump out there. Okay. So the next slide, these were questions that evidently you all had an opportunity to submit to either Jim Lindsay or David Munn or Jennifer. I'm not sure where they came through, but Jim sent these to me, so I put them. There's 2.5 pages of them. I'm going to kind of try to cover these quickly because these may be something that it's a question you didn't think of or something like, oh, actually that fits my, kind of the scenario I'm in. So I'm going to run through these. The first one is, when can someone apply for a government contractor job if their end of service is a year from now? You can apply at any time. Just make it real clear when your availability date is, and most applications ask you that. The real sweet spot is about 120 days, so 4 months. You should be looking at companies, researching, deciding on what you want to do when you grow up, maybe something that dovetails with the school program you're in now, or the track you're on. Really what you want to do, and then narrow it down. Do you want to work for a big company, a mid-sized, small company, a startup? But for 4 months, if you're relocating from Japan to Washington State or something, you're making a big move, maybe 6 months, but you just want to be upfront with everybody. Here's my availability date. I will be moving, relocating, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, on your resume or on your cover letter, or even during discussions with your recruiter, make sure you let them know that you have a government move. If you're still active duty or you've been out less than a year, you have a household good move. For non-retirees, it's back to your home of record. If you're a retiree, it's home of selection. You can go anywhere in the lower 48 unless Alaska or Hawaii are your home of record. Bullet 2, what type of questions should we be prepared for during the interview process? I kind of covered some of that, but remember, it's going to be about your depthness, what the position they're interviewing for, and your resume obviously piqued their interest, and they wanted to call you in for an interview. One, because you probably have the education and or experience. It could be geographically, it's more convenient to interview you because you're 50 miles away versus somebody that's 1,000 miles away. So just be prepared for really anything coming at you. It should be about your background. That's why you're there. So what is the main trait, qualification defense companies are looking for when it comes to hiring? Honestly, it's skill set related to the position. I mean, yeah, teamwork, good corporate citizen, all that. That comes with the territory. We're hiring you to do a specific job, a specific role that's spoke in the wheel, and we're looking for the best and most qualified person to do it. So it's going to come down to what that job description, whatever they put out there on the internet that you applied to, that is why you're in the room. It's about that job. What is the best way to stand out? Be prepared. Be prepared, no more than we do. Don't fluff your resume. If it's on your resume, we know we kind of understand that you did it, and we're going to hit you with some questions that any subject matter expert would be able to answer quickly. So be prepared for that. Don't overemphasize your background. And I'm not going to use the word lie, but just be careful. Make sure what's on your resume you've done and it matches the job description. Very important. What is the best route to take when I'm a recent graduate with my BS in public health with no experience, I guess, is what that was. That's going to be, public health, everything you studied. Obviously, you probably wanted to go into public health. So you're going to get jobs that are either looking for undergrad in public health and or positions, organizations, either, government, non-government, nonprofit, NPOs that do work in and around the public health space. And if you feel free to reach out to me if you're on this call and that was your question. What does the future hold for this industry? How does one align themselves with the current market to achieve success and longevity in this field? Well, I mean, as a defense company and a prime weapons developer, I'd say the future of this industry is solid. Our security for the company, our military, those are our biggest customers, the U.S. military, DOD, as well as the government, so all various agencies. I've been here almost 27 years, and we've kind of been through a lot of storms, and we've come out the other side wet, but we're still alive. So it's a great industry, and it allows you to really get on the inside of some cutting-edge sciences and applications, things that the civilian world might not see for five years. So And if you have a security clearance and you had one in the military, it's an outstanding way to take that coupled with your experience and move it into an industry where your potential will be maximized. What can I do to stand out? I think that was that was just me typing and not paying attention. Are there any common mistakes candidates make during the interview process that can be avoided? Kind of back to what I said, not researching the company or the position, having a know-it-all attitude, I think is good in some cases if that's what they're looking for. But if you're going to be dropped into a team where you've got to show teamwork and collaboration, I think many times it's a mistake, unintended, but people don't talk about, how they fit into a team, because it's all about you, what you're going to do, right? But as you're talking about the roles and the responsibilities that you had, you want to make sure that you pay homage to your team. My team did this, we did this, I led this, I did this, and our team did this, because we can't do it without our team. And if you're a veteran, you know that better than anybody. What are the best ways for students in technical careers such as cyber or software development to stand out when entering the workforce? Certificates and credentialing is what I would recommend. Okay, let me go to the next one. What advice would you give to someone?
Chris,
go ahead.
Yeah, Jim just sent over a message that he's going to bring everybody back into the main room at 6:55. So you got about 3 minutes.
So I got 3 minutes. Okay, let me just run through this real quick. Some of these don't really, these were specific. How to conquer fear during interview. I think I kind of mentioned this a little bit. Take a sip of water, take a break, look away, or even announce it. Hey, I'm so thrilled to be at this interview, but I'm so nervous. It's the first interview I've had in forever. Please bear with me. And just humility, just be honest. They know, we know. I mean, we know. But don't let it trip you up too bad, but feel free to proclaim it, like, hey, I'm gathering my words here. Apologies. How to highlight military experience. That's specific. How to get noticed for remote positions and land an interview. Look at the position. It'll tell you if it's remote, hybrid, full-time on-site. How likely are companies to try and recruit military members who have a lower level clearance? We like to bring them in with the level that we're looking for. But if it requires a top secret and you have a secret, we know that that's going to push out 3 to 4 months waiting for you to get that clearance. However, it will say in the job description, many times it'll say must be eligible to upgrade to top secret, something like that. So the company plans, to have you do other things while your investigation's being done. How can you write a resume for a career you have no experience in but are hoping to break into? Do you have to have a degree to apply? The job description will tell you, but if it's an area you want to break into, try to get an internship, try to take courses, try to get a certificate or a credential in that field, and understand that you're going to have to basically get your foot in the door. You need an opportunity to get in, and then it's study, get your credentialing. That is the recommendation I'll give you. And that's really in the last bullet. Can you provide examples of specific